Good evening, and welcome back to another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio and now powered by our first sponsor, TireGet.com. That's TireGet.com. You have to buy tires from somebody. You might as well buy them from us and help support the movement, help fund the movement. We believe in the freedom of movement, and that's exactly what the establishment wants to take from you. I am your host, Royce White, and I am here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota, for another episode number 33. No housekeeping today. We'll do some more housekeeping on Wednesday, and hopefully our good producer Tanner is feeling better and we can finally get to the Power of the Fed documentary. But there's a lot of other video clips I want to get to on Wednesday. So Wednesday will be a sort of what do they call them? Reaction videos, I guess. It'll be a kind of current events reaction hybrid on Wednesday night. The only housekeeping I will say is we appreciate all the new subscribers, all the new listeners all around the world. We appreciate your feedback. We appreciate the growth of the audience. We appreciate the War Room Posse and all of the people who watch the live stream on Getter on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, or any other days that we have episodes. We appreciate the Fearless Army. Roll Call was this past weekend. We hear that was an incredible event, so we appreciate all of those who attended Roll Call. Hopefully next year I'll be able to be a speaker there. Jason and I spoke about that. I had my son's tournament in Kansas City, basketball tournament. I'm coaching his sixth grade AAU team, so I wasn't able to make it this weekend, but next year we'll make that a priority. Also, want to say thank you to all of the people who continue to push the content, who continue to comment and fight the algorithm, who hit the like button, who subscribe to the channel. And if you get a chance, after this episode is done, we are now premiering Professor Penn's podcast at midnight for all you late night owls that like to learn and think on a deeper level when everybody else is sleeping and getting their rest. Some of us like the late night hour. I'm surely one of them. I was up at 3 a.m. last night watching, some history, watching a little bit of current news, watching the security state, explain the war in Russia, and so on and so forth. We got China and Taiwan popping up, and this whole thing is going to get pretty crazy pretty quickly, I think. So we appreciate you all for continuing to tune in. And also for helping us get the content out there. I think you're going to see a lot more in the weeks and months to come. You're going to see a lot more content. You're going to see ads start to pop up for the podcast. We had to get enough material to go back and make promotional material for the podcast. When we started this podcast, we didn't waste time and do a bunch of pre-promotional material. We just kind of took off and learn to fly the plane in the air. But we're now up to altitude in some regards. So we're going to start to put more promotional material out there, and hopefully the algorithms and the big tech platforms will let us sneak through the side door and get the podcast in front of more people. So all of that to come. Today, this episode is going to be a little touchy for some people, and I understand. Anytime you talk about faith or religion, or anytime you talk about God, matters of the spiritual world, people get very, very sensitive. They get very sensitive on all sides, and it doesn't matter what political side of the aisle you're on, doesn't matter what specific religion or denomination or faith practice you have. People get very sensitive about matters of religion. But right now we call, and I started the show by saying, I always start the show by saying, I'm your host, Royce White, and I'm here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota. I do that to create consistency, right? So that this conversation, this venue, Please Call Me Crazy, has some familiarity to it. Consistency is a huge thing. First, to set the mind to be able to learn, to set the mind to get in a place where you're used to learning or used to just thinking in a critical way. But I also say it for a very real reason. It's not just small talk or filler. This really is the belly of the beast. And this news that came out on Thursday of last week is a sign of the great manipulation and deceit to come. I'm going to read it for you. This is the Star Tribune. This is the same newspaper, local newspaper, but it's the newspaper of record here in the Twin Cities. It's the biggest newspaper here in the Twin City area or in the state of Minnesota. This is the same newspaper that said it was anti-Semitic for me to say the word globalism. They literally printed that. Okay, so we know who we're dealing with right from the word go. Again, anti-Semitic to say the word globalism, which is ridiculous on its face. I think if you tune in to Professor Penn's podcast tonight, so I hear he went over Yuval Noah Harari in great detail this morning, and that conversation will certainly bring a focus to the culture of Jews, the history of Jews, the faith of Jews, the non-faithful who claim to be Jews, and the emerging battle there in Israel between people who are more nationalist versus people who are more globalist. And in that, it will highlight that you can surely say the word globalist anywhere around the country, and it refer to people of all different walks of nationality, ethnicity, so on and so forth. So for the Star Tribune to even say that globalism is a dog whistle for anti-Semitism is ridiculous from the outset. This is who we're dealing with. But here they come straight down the middle because they're just reporting the news in this case. And in this case, Minneapolis becomes first major U.S. city to allow all 5 Muslim daily prayer calls. I'll read it again. Minneapolis becomes the first major U.S. city to allow all 5 Muslim daily prayer calls. The Minneapolis City Council voted unanimously to amend the city's noise ordinance, which had prevented some morning and evening calls at certain times of the year because they occurred at times of the day when tighter noise restrictions are in place. The Constitution doesn't sleep at night, said Jelani Hussein, executive director of the Minnesota chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, also known as CAIR, after the vote. He said Minneapolis' actions should show the world that a nation founded on freedom of religion makes good on its promise. Now, if you've been watching the podcast up until now, if you've been paying attention, if you've been here for multiple episodes, if you were here during Easter week, if you were here just in the last 4 episodes, I've gone out of my way. I've gone out of my way to speak on behalf of a sort of Abrahamic renaissance, a renaissance of Abrahamic faith, the openness to dialogue and potentially collaboration and good faith between people who believe in the same God. Right. Now you're going to have people in the comments immediately in the chat who say, the God of Catholics isn't the same God. The God of Muslims isn't the same God. The God of the Jews isn't the same God. The God of all of these groups of people and denominations are different. They're liars. And when I use profanity on the podcast, when I tell you these people are fucking liars, everybody wants to throw down and say, don't use profanity. Don't let anything corrupt come out of your mouth. They'll quote scripture. The only corrupt shit coming out of people's mouth is saying that Islam, Judaism, and Christianity all have different gods. That's ridiculous. Now, do you have institutions across the history of all of those faith practices that have weaponized their political power in a certain area at a certain time to, let's say, manipulate scripture, manipulate the take on history, manipulate the way that the faith is practiced, and ultimately, try to run their own personal racket on the church or on the people or on the faith itself? Absolutely, of course. It's happened in all 3 religions, in Judaism and Christianity and Islam. It's happened throughout history. We know that. But to make the case, the fundamental case that the God of all three religions is different is ridiculous on face value. You're not honest. You're not honest. And if I'm being honest, you're probably caught exactly in the trap that they want to set. They're setting a trap right now. And I'm a Christian, right? I believe that Christ is the Lord and Savior, the only begotten Son. And inshallah, for all of my Muslim brothers and sisters who are currently in Ramadan, inshallah, they come to know Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. So we have that difference of opinion when it comes to the faith. We have that difference of opinion on who Christ was. But it's not that Muslims don't believe in Christ. It says right there in the Quran that Jesus was the penultimate prophet. That Christ was, in fact, the Messiah. It says that right there in the Quran, that Christ was the Messiah, but he was not God. That's what the Muslims believe. That's the huge divide, for the most part, between Christianity and Islam, is that the Muslims acknowledge Christ as the penultimate prophet, as the penultimate Messiah, but they do not acknowledge him as the Son of God or as being God. Us Christians and us Catholics, we believe in a Trinitarian God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and that, in effect, Christ was actually God. The Jews obviously feel different about Christ. Some of them acknowledge him as a prophet. You have your Messianic Jews who actually acknowledge Christ as the Messiah, and then you have Jews who completely reject Christ altogether. So there's just, and the question of Christ becomes central to the division of all three faiths, for the most part. In many ways, you could look at the relationship between Jews and Muslims and see a ground for a much more similar take on the history of Abrahamic faith. Sure, there are stark differences. Don't get me wrong. Muhammad, Mosaic law, and there are stark differences. Don't get me wrong. But they both, in a way, deny the significance of Christ that Christianity emphasizes. That's just basic. Okay, we got it. We get the basis of it. And you can go down into scripture and you can get way down in the weeds. And a lot of people want to take you down there for purposes that are very obvious, has nothing to do with any type of better understanding. And it certainly has nothing to do with salvation. That's the story they'll sell you. That's the story that now the globalist, Star Tribune, and all of its political puppets, all of its running dogs are going to use to bring about the destruction of this country. And that's what this podcast is going to be about today. Because I've gone out of my way. I've gone out of my way. I really have. I've gone out of my way. And I wouldn't even say I've gone out of my way, but I've made it a personal mission to speak about the genocide against the Uyghur Muslims there in China. And it's not that I know any Uyghur Muslims. I certainly have friends and loved ones and people who I care dearly about who are Muslim. I have people who are family and friends who I care dearly about that are Jews. And obviously I was born and raised a Catholic. So my advocacy or my speaking out for the Uyghurs is not for some personal reason. It's just the most blatant hypocrisy out there in the world today, in the geopolitical conversation today, especially when it comes to matters of human rights, which has become a focal point of the post-World War II democratic liberal order on the world stage. Democracy, social justice, environmentalism. These are the three heralds of New World Order. Democracy, social justice, and environmentalism. But really, social justice is the cornerstone. Social justice is the way to get everybody open to the idea that without democracy and environmentalism, social justice is impossible. We can't have social justice. and this story is meant to do two things. This city council policy is meant to do two things. One, it's meant to openly attack white Christian nationalist men. It's meant to attack and it's meant to provoke. It's meant to stick a thumb in the eye of the Christian identity in this country. I said on my Twitter the other day when I first found this, it was Friday, I was on my way driving down to Kansas City, Missouri for my son's AAU tournament this past weekend. I said on my Twitter, when a secular society and movement openly, publicly adopt a faith practice, a prayer ritual, and a radical prayer ritual by their own standards, you know something else is going on. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that something else is going on here, that this is intended to stoke something. In all other cases, in all other walks of life, in all other manners of political discourse, the faith practice of Muslims, which is by many standards the most radical faith practice, and when I say radical, I don't mean radical as in dangerous, I mean radical as in not the norm of other people who practice the Abrahamic faith. Except maybe the Orthodox Jews. The Orthodox Jews have a very radical faith practice as well. But us Catholics, we really don't. I mean, for the most part, and us Christians, we really don't have a radical faith, faith practice, prayer ritual. We go to church on Sunday. Some of us go to Bible study during the week. We may read the Bible during the day and different things like that. We may reference the Bible for continued and perpetual guidance on certain things, especially hard times in our lives. The Muslims and the Orthodox Jews are not like this. They pray all day long. And the Muslims pray 5 times a day, as they say, religiously, right? That is their faith practice. Now, do all of them live up to it? No. But I would say on average that the 5 times a day prayer ritual in Islam is much more the norm than in the other Abrahamic faith. So a movement, a political movement, a political climate, a political culture that is as openly anti-God as we've ever seen in human history, really, certainly modern history, certainly post-Enlightenment, post-Renaissance European Western history, a movement and a culture that is as secular as we've ever seen, all of a sudden wants to adopt this radical faith practice and prayer ritual. Something's going on here. And it's not hard to see what. It's not hard to see. They're going to use Minneapolis to stick a thumb in the eye of Christians. They're going to use Minneapolis to stick a thumb in the eye of white, nationalist, God-fearing Christians who they now classify as domestic terrorists. And there's a second reason. There's a second goal. This is how Satan plays. This is how Satanists play. This is how people who don't believe in God play. This is how people who have no sacred honor play. There's always a twofer. There's always a threefold benefit to corrupt policy making and corrupt narrative shaping. In this case, they're going to use Muslims. And why are they going to use Muslims? Why are they using Muslims to bring about religious division? Simple. Because the Muslim conflict, the Muslim narrative on the global stage has the most weight to it. Now what they're going to do is they're going to try and, because the nationalist movement, because the liberal left movement, the progressive movement, and really the center movement too, the centrists in this country, it's all the way from the center and right of center, all the way out to the furthest left possible. Because it's become such an anti-God political landscape, such an anti-God political agenda, and all, the sliver of nationalists that fight for this country, that hangs upon a thread, the edge of a blade, the freedom in this country, the spiritual um, direction of this country hangs upon a thread, because the nationalist movement that has risen up is primarily based on a rejection of this anti-God culture. Now they're going to call your bluff. They're going to say, is it really about God? Is it really about religion? Is it really about the freedom of religion? Is it really about this country's founding ideals? If it is, then why not let the Muslims pray 5 times a day? This is how they play. This is how they set traps with the narrative. And I think the answer should be clear. First off, Muslims all across this country who aren't sellouts, who don't have their spiritual pride wrapped up in some strange need to um, defeat Christianity in the West. All Muslims everywhere should reject this. The same way Christians should reject it if Christianity is used as a battle axe in some type of political football or some type of political football. People who believe in God should reject the use of God as a political football. On principle, that would be taking the Lord's name in vain when you use God as a political tool, especially in such a deceitful way. Why? Yes, Muslims are free to practice their faith in this country. They're free to practice their faith. They're free to have their own mosques. Now, I would hope that they don't take tax-exempt status at those mosques, because that would be another way of selling out the faith, the Quran, Muhammad, whatever they want to stake their faith on, whatever. If you take a 501c3 tax-exempt status to worship God and you're silent about matters of politics in the state and the current state of things in your communities because the federal government gives you a reprieve on paying your taxes, that would be selling out. We talked about that before with Christians. It's true with Jews. It's true with whoever. They're free to practice their faith. They have freedom of religion. Why would a movement that's so anti-God and says that Christianity is being forced on Americans, that Christo-fascism is on the move, that white Republicans are trying to force their Christian ideals, their Christian conspiracy theories, or their Christian cult-like beliefs on the American public and American citizens? Why would that group of people call for public demonstration, public projection, public display of Muslim prayer? In effect, I mean, that's sort of a Muslim indoctrination. But it's meant to stick a thumb in the eye of Christians. Why? Because the people who don't believe in God, they don't care one way or another. The people who don't believe in God, they could care less how much people pray, realistically. And even more devious than that, they really have a specific problem with Christianity. And I mean, that really starts to show in this scenario. One of the most beautiful moments I recall over the last year or so of this political turmoil. I mean, it's been longer than that, but specifically over the last year or so, as the LGBTQ stuff in the schools really start to ramp up. Over the last year or so, the parents who protested at the school board there in Dearborn, Michigan, in a mix of Christians and Muslims, was one of the most beautiful things I've seen in the last 2 years. When I saw it right away, I knew it had power. When I saw it right away, I knew it was a threat. This is the reaction. This is the reaction, ex post facto, into the future, of the protest against the school boards in Dearborn, Michigan, when the Christians and Muslims stood together and said, teaching our kids these homosexual cult-like ideologies without our consent is not okay. That's what they're afraid of. That's what this is meant to undo. That's what this is meant to prevent. This is how the security state works. This is how the globalist agenda, the globalist cabal, the globalist movement, the globalist power in this country, but by way of Davos, Switzerland, and a bunch of other post-Enlightenment European monarchy remnants, post-World War II democratic liberal order. This is how the movement has hijacked our security state and made very, very strong inroads to local municipalities and bought off people like Jelani, who's the executive director of CAIR, bought him off to push policy through the city council like this. This is where the global affects the local. This is where the holy wars that have taken place across the last God knows how many centuries, the last 2,000 years. This is how those wars now come down and are focused into a small little window of local policy that will shape a narrative and set the mood, set the temperament, set the spirit of the times between Muslims and Christians all across the country and potentially rippling all across the world. 5 times a day in the public. 5 times a day, we're going to change the noise ordinance, and we're going to do it under the rubric that it's the freedom of religion. These are the same people who we can't teach our kids about the Bible in school. We can't teach our kids about the Bible in school at all. In fact, most of the people who would be for this legislation, the people who forwarded this legislation, will say that it's Christians' job to teach their own kids about the Bible. Okay, fine. And Christians have been fine with that for the last 50 or 60 so years, since the Christian identity has been stripped from this country. We've been fine with that. Okay, we leave the religion to our own house. We don't need it to be at the school. That's fine. Now we're going to bring Muslim prayer, the most radical prayer ritual in the Abrahamic faith. We're going to bring Muslim prayer by way of public governance, city governance. We're going to bring Muslim prayer to the entire city of Minneapolis. Everybody should see what's happening here. Everybody should understand what's happening here. One, they want to take the white Republicans who watch too much fucking Fox News, who watch too much fucking Hannity, who have been sold this bullshit bill of goods about the war on terror and radical Islam for the last 25 years while they steal your fucking money to do it, right? You're a pussy at home. You're scared. You're afraid of Muslims. You're afraid of Osama bin Laden and Saddam Hussein and the ISISes of the world and so on and so forth. The Muslim Brotherhood. You're afraid of all of these people who live a world away, who they can sell, are the biggest threat to your freedom, and therefore they need your tax money and they need you to sit at home like a bean on a couch, like a bean on a beanbag, sit at home and wait for them to steal more money from you to protect you. This was giving away your security, your freedom for security. War on terror. That's what it was. 20 years. Iraq, Afghanistan, all the while, they're siphoning off the poppy, right? Poppy, lithium, whatever natural resource it was. It's all a scam. It was all a scam. We know it. We know it. There were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Scam. We know it now. We all know. If you can't come off of that, You don't even deserve. Just unsubscribe. Go ahead. Exit stage right, because this ain't the conversation for you. If you can't get past that part of it from the outset, there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. We put Saddam there. We funded the Taliban. We funded the Mujahideen. Yeah, and they got problems in Islam. They got problems that have to do with doctrine and spiritual. But let's not act like that's the real fundamental divide between us and the Muslims, because we got that problem. We got a bunch of people who claim to be working in the interest of God and faith, and really they're just trying to siphon as much coin as they can. We got that problem. We got that problem here in America. We got that problem in the Christian community. We have that problem in the Catholic Church. We all know it. Let's stop the fuck around, okay? So all you people who believed in, who've been watching Sean Hannity and have this huge hard-on for Islam, this is what they come in. This is meant for you. This is meant to play on your emotion. This is meant to tell you, here the Muslims come. The Muslims, here they come. And the Muslims are being played the exact same way. This is a win for you. This is a win for Islam. This is a win for the Prophet Muhammad. This is a win for the spreading of Islam. No, it's not. It's not a win. It's not a win when the government uses your faith, uses your emotional investment in the faith and weaponizes it against other people. And that is one of the few places where the tradition of Islam is greatly missing the component of grace. It's a huge flaw in the Islamic faith, in my opinion. Grace. There are certain places in the Quran that say that you can lie to people who are not Muslim, who do not practice the faith. It's okay to lie. They have a similar tradition in many cultural Jewish practices. It's okay to lie to people who aren't Jews. You can lie to the Gentiles, right? Islam has that same sort of custom wrapped in there. Does everybody practice it? No. Does every Muslim that you meet believe that they should be able to lie? No. But Islam as a faith practice all around the world has a much more consistent familiarity with those parts of the Islamic faith than the other two, in my opinion. So there are problems with Islam. There are great problems with Islam. There are also beautiful things about Islam. There are also great things about Islam. And this is another way that the whole thing is being weaponized. Because what they really mean to do is they mean to use Islam as a juxtaposition for you 501c3 Christians to never gain up the courage, never muster up the commitment to your own Christianity to make the type of stands that Muslims have made on behalf of their faith throughout history. Am I going too deep yet, Tanner? Is this too deep? Are you tracking? The Muslims are willing to die for the faith. The Muslims are willing to evangelize whoever they can. The Muslims are willing to put the prayer call 5 times a day up on the speaker. Whether you think they're sellouts or not, whether you think they believe in the same God or not, whether what is true is that they're obviously willing to penetrate city councils. They're willing to penetrate city councils in order to be able to do these type of things. Where are we? Where are we? This is what Christians must ask themselves all across the country now. When legislation like this comes about, where are we? Who should we be mad at? Should we be mad at the Muslims? Now, this guy Jelani, who's in charge of the CAIR, group, the Council on Islamic Affairs, whatever the shit stands for, whatever the little fucking corny acronym stands for. Should we be mad at him? Yeah, he's a sellout. We know his game. He's the same one out there when the George Floyd thing's going on and I'm walking out on top of the U.S. Bank football stadium talking about corporatocracy. He's the same one in the back of the crowd walking about, shifting around, trying to make sure that all of the pieces and chips are set, all the alliances are together, that the entire LGBTQ liberal left movement, Marxist movement, makes room for the Muslim deal makers here in town. It's the reality. Many of the Muslims know it's true. Many of them, I grew up in, see, and another part of this is there's some people who are in politics. There's some people who are political pundits. There's some people who have commentary on these matters that aren't really of the people. And when I say they're not of the people, I don't mean they're not of a people. Everybody's from a people. But sometimes they're not of the people that these political and cultural and community matters immediately apply to. I come from the streets of Minneapolis and St. Paul. I know the what do they call it? The stakeholders of the community. I know the cultural history of the community on both sides of the river. I know who CAIR is. I know what they do. I know how they've leveraged the immigrant community here in this country, and here specifically in Minneapolis and St. Paul for their own political agenda. I know how they've taken advantage of the immigrant community that never really assimilates the same way the other immigrants who they often talk about in their immigration monologues, in their immigration diatribes of the day. The Somalis of today, the Ethiopians of today, the Nigerians of today, any immigrants of today, the Mexican immigrants of today, they didn't assimilate like the Irish and Italians and Jews and whoever, or even the Africans who came or immigrated from those times. They don't assimilate to American culture the way that those immigrants did. So stop talking about immigration in this historical context or this strange vacuum that really bastardizes the fact that most Americans read at a 5th grade level. That's what our American political system is built on. Most of you at home don't read or think past the 5th grade level. I learned that in my congressional campaign. For all of the people who are in the background, who make the ads, who are the experts on messaging and how to get a successful image and campaign running, dumb it down. Dumb everything down. This is the dumb it down political era. The people out there, they don't listen very long, and when they're listening, they can't comprehend past the 5th grade level. I said no. The American people are smarter than you give them credit for. The American people and all free people everywhere have a deep desire and yearning for knowledge, true knowledge, than you're giving them credit for. I don't know. You all voted for Ilhan Omar again at 80%. If the election was actually valid, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Who knows? We don't know now because we've given all of our freedom to the security state because we were scared of the war on terror. I mean, look how it all just ties into a beautiful little knot. You cucks at home were so scared about Islam that we let the security state balloon, and now we have no clue whether or not our elections have any integrity. There's no way to know. There's actually no way to know. In full transparency, anybody who tells you otherwise is lying to you. There's no way to know whether the elections are fair or not. All signs point to that our security state and many agencies, many powerful agencies and institutions within this nation and maybe beyond this nation have the capacity to influence our elections because we've had the capacity to influence other elections. To think that we're impenetrable is just narcissistic and naive on behalf of Americans. Of course, our elections are not safe. Nobody's elections are safe all around the world, least of all ours, which the results of have such huge ramifications here in America, but all around the world. Of course, people are playing with our elections. Of course, people are playing around in our elections. To what extent? Well, that's to be discovered. And hopefully we will discover it. And hopefully we elect some people that make it a priority to discover it. But we did this. We did this. We let the war on terror become the calling card to give away our freedom to a super state, a super surveillance state. And now that same super surveillance state who has the receipt where you paid your tax money to fund, some corrupt war on terror in the Middle East, now they're coming back to feed you even more. The Muslims are coming. The Muslims are coming. And at the same time, they'll say, if you don't accept it, if you don't accept the 5 times a day prayer call on the loudspeakers throughout the city of Minneapolis, if you don't accept it, then you're Islamophobic. Same people. These are the same people. I don't think you guys understand that at home. The same people that took your money to fund going to kill a bunch of Muslims in the Middle East are the same people telling you now that you have to accept the Muslim prayer call 5 times a day throughout the city. They're the same people. They don't want you to think they're the same people. They will never admit to being the same people. They will never come out and say, we're the same people. Let's just look at the facts. Who supported the war in Iraq? Who supported the war in Afghanistan? Go check the records. You got access. All the porn and women in the swimming pools clapping their ass cheeks that so many millions of people are watching and liking and sharing. You got access. You're wealthy. As poverty-stricken and oppressed as people are, you sure got a lot of access to a lot of things. Losing your soul at the slot machine. While you're there at the slot machine, and I refer to the slot machines as big tech, because the same psychology around the slot machines is what they use to program social media apps. It's true. It's a fact. Slot machine technology, the whole slot machine technology and psychology is what you experience when you're on a social media app. Ding, the light. That's why it's red. It's red. Ding, now the scroll feature. It's just it's the slot machine. Okay, you're losing your soul at the slot machine. We get it. While you're losing your soul at the slot machine, have enough pride and decency. Have enough pride in your own life, in your own mind, on your way down. Because you're on your way down. We're all on our way down right now. By a miracle, we don't hit rock bottom. By many measures, we already have. On your way down. Say a few things. Do a few things. What's your final good deed? That's where we are now. We're in that extreme of a situation. What's your final good act going to be? Now, that good act could be over the next 10 years. It could be over the next 5 years. You may only get another 36 hours to live. I don't know. Maybe you live another 40 years. It's a small increment of time in the breadth of history. What's your final days going to be like? Are you going to scroll your life away? Are you going to lose your soul at the slots? Probably, because the dopamine is so good, you won't even really be able to fight it. It's such an integral part of our society. You have to be jacked in and connected online and constantly networking if you want to try and have opportunities. Okay. Take the time to go and see which politicians still sit in political office today, how they voted in Afghanistan and Iraq. And watch how slowly but surely they have now done an entire 180 from going to use your money to kill Muslims in the Middle East to telling you you're Islamophobic if you don't want to accept 5 times a day prayer call in Minneapolis or anywhere in this country. Same people. Are they really even that good, or are we just that stupid? I mean, that's what it comes down to. And then you have to ask yourself, who's ignorant and who's in on it? This is the primary question of Please Call Me Crazy. I want you guys to become familiar. This is a recurring question for this show. No matter who it is, we should ask ourselves, are they ignorant to it or are they in on it? This guy Jelani from CAIR, he's in on it. Ilhan Omar, she's in on it. Amy Klobuchar, in on it. Governor Tim Walz, in on it. Keith Ellison, in on it. David Hahn, in on it. David Hahn's the chair of the Republican Party here in Minnesota. And if you watch our last interview with Dr. Scott Jensen, who just ran for governor here in the state of Minnesota, he asked a very, very reasonable question. Why would David Hahn and what's the guy's name? Ken something from the Democrat side. He's the chair of the DFL. Why would they be in lockstep in keeping third parties out of the elections and off of the ballots? Monopoly, uniparty, cartel. You got a political cartel between Republicans and Democrats, mainstream Republicans and Democrats. And then the Republicans who are really Republicans, the Republicans who really want to have a country, the Republicans who you basically can't even call Republicans anymore, they want you to think are the radicals, the extremists, the ones who follow Donald Trump. They're the ones who are loosely identified as Republicans today. You see how they flipped the narrative? A lot of you people at home actually believe that the Bushes were Republicans. I remember being on Patrick Bet-David and telling one of his guys there that Richard Nixon was a Democrat. And he was baffled. I mean, he was just, he couldn't even comprehend what I was saying. He said, Richard Nixon's a Republican. I said, yeah, but he was a Democrat. Kissinger, he was a Democrat. Remember, the post-World War II Democratic liberal order. Democratic liberal order. For a reason. The prevailing foreign policy around the world today, and we're about to go to war for it right now. Actually, we're at war for it right now. Democratic liberal order. The Bushes were never Republicans. They were always Democrats. The neoliberal world order. And those are the people that made you afraid of. Those are the same people. And here's what's scary about that iteration, that era. Not only are those same people who took money from you to go wage a war on terror in the Middle East against Muslims, now they're going to call you Islamophobic and say you're not tolerant of freedom of religion. Not only are those the same people actually funded and gave weapons to the Muslims that they would then call and say are terrorists, that they took your tax money to go kill them. Same people. I mean, how gullible can we be? When are we going to learn? When are we going to say enough is enough? We're just not willing to let you lie to us like we're not willing to let you pimp us like this. The American public is being pimped by its political elites in a historic fashion. Straight pimped. All of you at home, you might as well be out there on the strip. You might as well be out there on the block, on the street, walking around money. You might as well be on the whole stroll. You might as well be out there on the street getting money. That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing for your political elites. You go to work. You put in long hours. You miss time with your children. You know, you don't have a 401k. The pensions are depleted. There's no pensions. The pensions are done. Pension's going to run out by 2030. Done. Out of there. See ya. All your pension money went to teach Middle East girls about transgender, non-binary theory. Pension's out. You're working. You don't have a 401k. You may see it on paper on your pay stub. It's not there. It's not there. They're lying to you. They're using the full weight of the American government and their relationship with the banks and the entire corporate apparatus to lie to you. That's why your number appears there on the 401k pay stub. It's not there. The money's not there. They're lying to you. They're lying straight to your face. And because you don't have basic skills, because you don't know how to survive out in the wild, because you don't because you live in a postmodern society that's technologically advanced and full of the prosperity that comes along with it, you need to believe them. I don't believe them. That's why they call me crazy. And they'll say I'm a conspiracy theorist. But the fact is, there is no money in the Social Security fund. That's a fact. It's dried up. They're borrowing money from your children in the future to pay your Social Security. You might as well just take your grandkid right when they come out of the womb and apply for a credit card with their Social Security number. That's what the government's doing to you. The only difference is if you did that, you would probably actually be using some of that money to go towards your grandchild. They're taking money from you and borrowing money from you to send to another country and tell you that it's for your security. Was the war on terror before? Now it's going to be the war on Russia. Now it's going to be the war on dictators. Now it's going to be the war on autocrats and people who won't submit to the new world order. And they're going to use Muslims to do it. They're going to use your fear of Muslims to do it. Muslims, they're going to use you to do it. Why on earth would they even announce this type of corrupt, manipulative use of city politics and city policy? Why would they even announce this during Ramadan? That's how you know there's a sellout at work. That's how you know this guy Jelani's a sellout. And we just had Easter, which is a holy week for Christians. And you got Passover, and everybody who is observing Easter, Holy Week, Passover, Ramadan. God bless you. But stop letting them use holidays, holy holidays, to push political propaganda. Whether it feels like it benefits you at the time is irrelevant. Y'all know there are plenty of Muslims, and I'm riding Ubers often. I'm in the Uber. Now I probably have to stop riding the Ubers because somebody try and clip me from riding in the Ubers. But actually riding the Ubers might be the safest way to go because you never know what car I'm going to be in. Don't have a car that you can just say, oh, that's Royce. Shell games with the security state who we know wants to kill people like me. We know it. We know it. They don't have any use for people who disrupt the flow of the narrative like that. Unless you work for the security state and you were sent out to perpetuate a narrative by giving little bits of information. That's called controlled opposition. But they don't want any genuine people out there questioning the narrative and following up. That's just a headache. But even more so, they're really reliant. The security state in this country is so reliant upon how stupid the American people are, they don't even need to kill truth tellers anymore. Why do we need to kill Alex Jones? We could just convince you that he's crazy. Why do we need to kill a Donald Trump? We don't need to kill him. We'll just tell you he's a sleazy scumbag who paid some porn star hush money. Well, we don't need to kill him. Yet. Not saying it's beyond them. In either of their cases, Alex Jones or Donald Trump. And God forbid something ever like that would ever happen to them. Alex Jones people probably would just say, oh, yeah, he had that coming. Because they're fucking cowards and sellouts. They'll move on. Donald Trump has such a huge following and magnifying glass on him that that would be a different proposition. I would pray that our elites who oppose Donald Trump wouldn't be stupid enough to make that move. But we have to consider it now. Is it even safe to talk about such things on the internet? We had a president, we in recent history had our president's head blown off in front of the entire country. This is a reality we must confront. This is a possibility. We live in that society. We live in that political world. And if they did do something to Donald Trump, you have to think it might be just to stoke some type of civil war, because an America at war civilly, an America at war within is an America that's weak to foreign influence and foreign domination. We have an enemy within. We have many enemies within. Many, many enemies within now. All the way down to the local level. The Minneapolis City Council uses Ramadan to pass some political propaganda to stick their thumb in the eye of Christians. That's what it's intended to do. This isn't anti-Muslim. This is Islamophobic. At the mosque, they can pray all they want. They can pray all they want. In fact, I wouldn't mind actually visiting the mosque. I'm going to actually go visit some mosques. I'm going to actually make it a priority to go visit some mosques and tell them, do not let these people use you in this way. Do not let them sow division between Christians and Muslims along the differentiation and interpretation of our prophets and doctrine to push a political agenda, because we know it's not in the interest of God. It's not in the interest of religion and freedom of religion. We know that. If we're not smart enough to see that, we don't deserve freedom. If you'll trade your security, your freedom for security, you deserve neither and you'll have neither. This is intended to appear as security to practice Islam. This is intended to be perceived as security for Muslims to practice the faith. We have to see beyond this now. We have to see beyond the game. The games are being rolled out constantly. I mean, there's a room full of people. I don't think you understand. You go to work you wake up, you set your alarm, 7 a.m., you get up, you get your kids up, your kids go to school, you go to work, you go to lunch, you go home for the day, you pick your kids up, you take them to their activities, whatever it is, sports, dance recitals, whatever it is, whatever they do. You get home at night, you turn on the news. Maybe you don't. Maybe you read the newspaper. I don't know. Maybe you just sit down and enjoy a movie. I don't know. I don't know what you do. Take a walk, exercise, so on and so forth. There are people out there. There are institutions out there with groups of people, with agencies of people who sit around all day during that time and figure out how best to manipulate you. That's their whole job. That's all they're do. They're dedicated. How can we manipulate these people? Their whole job is the manipulation of people, social engineering. And constantly, we live up to their assumptions. We live up to their predictions. We live up to their expectations. Constantly, over and over and over and over and over. We live up to the traps that they set before us. Constantly. What is it? Pride? Ego? Vanity? Wrath? Lust? Gluttony? What is it? It's all of them. 7 deadly sins. Constantly we live up to it. Constantly we find a way to bicker between each other, for the most petty differences while they keep the machine rolling. And the machine is always on, 365 days, 24/7. The Ferris wheel is always on. The merry-go-round's always on. When are we going to stand up to these people? When are we going to actually just say, you know what? Enough. Stop. Enough. Absolutely. The city council of Minneapolis should be voted out for this legislation alone. Not because we have a problem with Muslims praying, not because we have a problem with Islam, not because we're scared that radical Islam is going to infest our cities or infest our minds. Not for that reason. Because we know it's bullshit. That's why the Minneapolis City Council should be voted out based on this legislation alone. Not to mention that the track record of legislation and policy that they carry around behind them. Leave that to the side. Just for this alone, the Minneapolis City Council should be voted out. We know it's bullshit. None of you care about God. None of you care about the freedom of religion. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. The same Minneapolis City Council would have a conniption if a group of Christians forwarded a motion to be able to teach kids the Bible in the Minneapolis public school district. What are you going to tell me? What can you say in response to that? I know what you'll say. You'll say Christianity was the founding religion of this country and many other European monarchies that waged war all around the world for hundreds of years, and this is all just payback. And that's the very alignment with which the Muslims can find themselves with secular, anti-God liberals and on the same side of the table. And they'll tell you that that's unity. Not the Muslims that live at Cedar Riverside. They won't tell you that's unity. If you go ask Muslims, the Somalis that live at Cedar Riverside, if you go ask them about Ilhan Omar, they all unanimously say, fuck Ilhan Omar. With unanimous opposition. Unanimously. Go to Cedar Riverside today. If you're in Minnesota, if you have the courage, if you have the balls, most of you don't have the balls to go anywhere and ask anybody anything anymore, let alone into what they call the belly of the beast. The belly of the beast is really your own home with the little box, the little TV, the little frequency you get from the Wi-Fi where you're streamlined all the propaganda of the day. That's the real belly of the beast. That's the deepest belly of the beast. That's the colon. Right, that's the shitter of the beast. Let's just say that, okay? That's the anal sphincter of the beast right there. That little fucking Wi-Fi signal that you get, that's Satan right there. Satan's got the whole thing gridlocked right there. But the belly of the beast, okay, upper GI, right? Cedar Riverside. What they'll say. Many of you won't go there. But if you go there, you'll learn very quickly that none of them like Ilhan Omar. So how have they been portrayed to be this unanimous support and voting bloc for Ilhan Omar? I'll tell you, people like Jelani, who run the CAIR program, facilitate the community-wide support in Cedar Riverside for Ilhan Omar. That's how it happens. Go-betweens, middlemen. Bourgeoisie sellouts. They have them in the Somali community and in the Muslim community, just like they have them in the black community. Actually, the bourgeoisie sellouts from the black community and the bourgeoisie sellouts from the Somali community now get together and act like their interests are aligned. This is the scam that they got running. All because nobody from the conservative movement, nobody from the Christian movement, nobody from the nationalist movement with the exception of Steve Bannon and the movement that he started, is willing to stand up and go to these people and say, you realize you're getting played? Most of us are willing to leave them to their own devices and sit back and let the chips fall where they will. And we're going to lose that way. Make no mistake about it. We will lose that way. We will lose this country that way. We will lose freedom that way. We will lose our citizenship that way. We will lose unless people muster up the courage to go into the places they least want to go, to say the thing they need to say the thing that matters the most, to speak the truth. We will lose. We are losing right now. We're losing. Slowly but surely. You don't feel it yet? Everything feels fine. Everything's fine. I can still go down to Panera, put my order in, and get some artisan gourmet bread. I can get some artisan gourmet bread on my way to the Timberwolves playoff game, where we have Budweiser and they have craft beer, they have wine. If I need, they have vodka. They got Red Bull, tequilas for me, whatever I need. They still have it. Everything's fine. My credit card still works. My bank's still covering the deposits for now. Everything's fine. When shit goes bad, it goes bad fast. So if you want to just live it up in these final days, go ahead. Okay. Whether it be now or in the very near future, what I'm saying is going to come to pass anyway. Just remember who told you when it comes to pass. So then we won't have any mistakes about where the leadership needs to come from when the day comes. That's all I'm asking. Fine, you want to jerk off now until the whole thing crumbles? I get it. Let me get the last few jerks before the whole thing crashes. I get it. Fine. You want to remember this time? Because the hard times are in front of us. All the easy decisions are behind us now. So I get it. You want to get your last hoorah. You want to get your last, your last ride. You want to do the last, fine. Just remember when shit hits the fan, who told you it was coming, so we don't have any misunderstandings about what the next era of leadership needs to look like. Because I would really appreciate not having to come back to you all and have to repitch why people like me should be leading this country. I would really appreciate not having to do that. Really. It's a waste of fucking time. And it's going to be an extremely poor use of time when that day comes. I don't want to have to tell you people in Minneapolis why Jelani from the fucking CAIR organization is a goddamn sellout. Passing anti-God legislation through the city council just to stick a fucking thumb in the eyes of Christians. Is there really an LGBTQ Islamic alliance? I mean, what the fuck kind of stupidity do these people think they can pass on you? It's an insult to your intelligence. I mostly find myself frustrated on behalf of you for the things that these people think that you believe. I find myself at night often looking at news, looking at stories, looking at quotes from very prominent and powerful people and institutions, thinking in my head, there's no way the American people believe this. There's no way the American people will buy this. There's no way they think the American people are this stupid. Same way in my campaign, oh, Royce, you got to talk at this level because the people won't understand certain things. There's no way I actually got mad at the people who suggested that I should dumb down the rhetoric in the campaign for a 5th grade reading level. I actually got mad at them on behalf of you. I'm offended for you when they think you're stupid. But I can't be more offended for you than you're offended for yourself. Just like coaching a basketball team. I can draw up the plays. I can tell you what you have to do, but I can't want it more than you want it. If I want it more than you want it, it'll never work. I don't care what coach you are. I don't care what you lead. I don't care what business you own. If you want it more than the people who have to do it want it, you're going to have problems. Same thing I tell my son. I want you to be a great athlete. I want you to be great at whatever you do. But you got to want it more than I do. You have to want it more for yourself than I want it for you. And your actions, your daily actions, your practices, your habits, your rituals, your commitment has to look like that consistently. Your commitment has to consistently be that way. Same thing goes for you at home. Your commitment has to consistently reflect that you want freedom more than I want it for you. Same thing to be said for Donald Trump. Donald Trump can't want freedom for you more than you want it for yourself. He can't wave a magic wand. All he can try and do is speak the truth the best he can at the age he's at to try and inspire your desire to have freedom for yourself. That's where leaders and role models become false idols. Where you think somebody wanting something for you is going to bring it. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I could tell the people of Minneapolis, I could tell the people of Minnesota until I'm blue in the fucking face that these Democrat leaders that you've elected are sellouts and they have nothing in mind for the people of Minnesota or Minneapolis or anywhere else in this country but their own corrupt political ambitions. I could tell you that. But you have to want something more. You have to. I shouldn't say that. You don't have to. It's clear that you don't have to. But you haven't seen harsh times yet. They have not come yet. And we're just going to keep coming back to it over and over again because the harsh times are coming. They're coming. And oh, by the way, don't think the devil doesn't have a backup plan. The backup plan is clear as well. The backup plan is that many people will try and ring the alarm right now and tell you the bad times are coming. And in order to discredit those people, when the bad times actually get here, they will create a deal and a workaround to take more freedom from you by your own voluntary will. When the time comes, the bank is collapsing. Yeah. The whole financial, the dollar is crashing. We have a workaround. We have a deal. We have an idea. We have a solution. Give us more of your freedom. Give us more of your privacy. Double down on us. Triple down on us. Trust us. And we'll make sure your lights stay on. We'll make sure you can eat. And if you're stupid, if you think at a fifth grade level, if you read at a fifth grade level, if your cognitive reasoning is at a fifth grade level, you'll actually think that the welfare state continuing on is a sign of good outcome. It's a good result. It's a good deal. It's a good deal for the Muslims to be able to have public prayer call in Minneapolis. It's a good deal for us. Pretty good. Everything's good. City councils being more tolerant to different religions. This is no longer the country of the white man in Christianity. Great. First it'll be that, then it'll be Social Security's depleted, and the entire American economy is crashing, and we'll give you one central bank digital currency. We're going to restructure the entire economic system based on fourth industrial revolution technology that now puts your money within a 15-minute radius, a group of collaborative partners, collaborative economic corporate stakeholders who all see this need for a minimal future, a future that reimagines the footprint of human beings all across the planet in the interest of a better tomorrow, in the interest of the planet, in the interest of equality and equal access, in the interest of democracy. Here's your central bank digital currency. If you opt into this, there's all kinds of perks. We'll give you bread and cheese and milk and eggs. We'll give your kid diapers. We'll give we'll give you water. We'll give you electricity. We'll give you all the things you need. But we have to know every single purchase you make at all times. Same government that gave the radical Muslims weapons. Same government that then went back and took your money to go kill radical Muslims with weapons. Same people now that tell you a five time a day prayer, call to prayer, noise ordinance policy. Any rejection of that is Islamophobic. Same people that are going to tell you, trust us more. If you give us more trust, we can get it done. Getting pimped. You're getting pimped by your leaders. That's just the reality of it. That's the skinny of it. You're getting pimped. And the pimping is speeding up. Oh, it's ramping up. It's not one steady pace. This pimp has ambitions. This pimp has real dreams, okay? And you're at the center of them. You may not be interested in the security state. You may not be interested in globalism, but the security state and globalism is interested in you. That's for sure. Another, and let's just expand the conversation. Let's go from the local to the global. Sometimes I like to go from the global to the local, but this story here, I couldn't help but start with the local and show you how it properly reflects the global. And I go back to China. I don't mean to be a fucking China hawk, but if any of you out there believe that your life is going to become better when China is the superpower of the world, you're a fucking sellout. You're a sellout. You're a sellout to all the former claims you made about human rights and child labor laws and whatever else. You're a sellout. You know good and well that a China-dominated world is not going to bring better daily life for anybody. I guess it depends on what you think is a good daily life. The African countries right now are being settled by China. All of the European colonial, and see, here's where Satan's good. Satan is 12 steps ahead. It's so easy to see once you see it. The Americans, they wanted to go to all of these countries and promote democratic liberal order. Really, they were just taking resources. They were just stealing. Really, they were stealing. In exchange for stealing, we'll give you our posh, yuppie, bourgeois elite academic philosophy. That's what we'll give you. And you should feel blessed. You should feel blessed to have the cultural idea be thrust upon you that women should be able to work with equal pay. You should feel blessed to have that. Before we came, you didn't have that. Before we came, you didn't have democracy. You weren't a democracy. You were ran by a king or a village leader or a warlord or an autocrat or a dictator or whatever the case may be. We brought you democracy. We brought you liberalism. We brought you order. And you should thank us. Nobody thanks us. Nobody thanks America. Nobody thanks America for that. People resent America for that. That's the reality. People resent us. And now China, who didn't spend 20 years on a war, spend 20 years of resources, time, energy, and money fighting a war on terror, now they're coming right back behind us and doing the exact opposite. We'll build you roads. We'll build you highways. We'll build you airports. All you African nations that America wouldn't deal with because you guys have autocrats or dictators or warlords as your leaders, and you have too many human rights violations for America to be able to attach themselves to, we'll deal with you. These are the people that the same African warlords, the same types of African nations that perpetrated human rights abuses like Rwanda or, any other number of them. The same human rights organizations that called those tragedies genocides or human rights violations, laws, crimes against humanity. Those same African nations are the same nations that the CCP is going to do deals with now. They're cutting deals with them. We'll build you an airport. We'll build you a hospital. We'll build you a road. We'll build you highways and so on and so forth. We'll give you technology to be able to do agricultural farming, do your own farming. We'll help you be self-sufficient. That's what we should have done. That's what America should have genuinely done. We should have done it genuinely. The CCP isn't doing it out of genuine care. The CCP is doing it because in the near future, when they need, all of these airports and roads and hospitals and all these things they're being leased to African nations. They're being leased to new partners and new frontiers by the CCP in their Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, One Belt, One Road. You can look it up. They laid out the battle plan. The battle plan that some people from within America gave them. But they laid out the battle plan. You're some little shit country in Africa and they build you an airport. Yeah, you're free to use your airport until we go to war with America, until we go to war with the West, and we need your little shithole country and airport as a restock or as a refuel for our military jets. Same thing America did. They're using our playbook. They're using our playbook against us. They're using our playbook against us. The only difference is they come later in the story so they can point to all of the flaws and pitfalls and corruption in America in their sales pitch to be the next player. Trading one devil for another. That's what many countries are doing. That's what many people in the world are doing right now. Many of us in America, we don't have the courage to step up and say, we were the devil in the game before. We need to change who we are in the game going forward so that we can actually defeat the CCP before they use that narrative to take over and wreak havoc upon the world. Because there's one thing that the CCP is not shy about. They have a communist ideology at the center of their worldview. America marched around the world, perpetrated piracy, drugs, and slavery in the name of God, and that was taking the Lord's name in vain. There's no doubt about it. That's wrong. That was wrong. It is wrong. It will always be wrong. But it's not wrong to have God at the center of your worldview. And that part of the West, that part of American culture, that part of our society, we must keep. Because that's the only part of our society that ensures that you have rights that are inalienable. That's the only part of our society that ensures it. The thin veil of God-fearing Christianity in the West is the only reason why democracy looked the way it did. If it wasn't for the thin veil of Christianity and the need to at least appear to be observant of God's natural order or the natural law or humanity, human dignity, if it wasn't for that, democracy would have already been tyrannical all around the world. It's not hard to corrupt a democracy. Who are y'all fucking kidding? It's not hard to corrupt a democracy. It's not hard to corrupt politicians. It's not hard to buy people off. We're looking at it here in America. Democracy here in America has been corrupted. Root and branch. The democracy here is thoroughly corrupted. If it wasn't for the thin veil of Christianity that undergirds democracy in this liberal order, democracy would have looked much more brutal this entire time. That's the reality. And don't get me wrong, the democratic liberal order and what America has done all around the world has been brutal at times, very brutal, unacceptably brutal, unacceptably barbaric. Like using a drone to bomb people who, innocent. I don't know. The security state says that they're guilty, but who knows? I don't know. Some of them might be guilty, some of them not. Wouldn't surprise me. Just like some people here are guilty and some people aren't. I know there's an accepted casualty rate in the military-industrial complex. I know there's an accepted casualty rate for drone strikes. Casualty as in innocent casualties. Oh, we got a target here, and he's a high-level terrorist that will have unspeakable ramifications on the overall security of our nation and our citizens if we don't kill him right now while he's in this building with countless number of people that we really can't really be sure about. We can't really get a great number because, after all, our technology has its limits. Can't be sure how many innocent people are in the building. But we got to kill this guy right now because we may not ever have another shot like this. Happens all the time. Go listen to Barack Obama talk about drone strikes and the accepted casualty rate. Go ahead. Go for yourself. I know it's dark. I know you don't want to do that over your morning venti from Starbucks. I know that might, ruin your day, to have to think about how the world really fucking works. You can stake all of your fucking political worldviews on some mainstream propaganda narrative between Donald Trump and the Democrats. I know that feels good to you. That feels like you actually know what the fuck you're talking about. But you don't want to have to confront any of the way the world really works. America has been brutal, no doubt about it. America has been brutal in more ways than we could possibly count. That's not the question anymore. The question is, at bottom, fundamentally, two nations, two superpowers, two global superpowers are about to collide. Would you rather be with the global superpower that believes in God, and because of that belief in God, believes that each individual person has inalienable rights granted to them by the Creator? Or would you rather go with a country or a superpower that doesn't believe in God whatsoever, and that human beings are just hackable organisms? Human beings are just hackable animals. Workers, inventory. That's the question you're faced with now. That's the question we're all faced with. A little bit of geopolitics. What do we think? Look, this is going down right now. It's right now. China is planning on invading Taiwan. You got the American government sitting over here saying, we will do whatever we need to protect Taiwan. Why? Why? I'm not saying we shouldn't protect Taiwan. I'm not saying one way or another. I'm talking about the narrative. What's the reason being given that we have to protect Taiwan? What's the reason? The reason they're telling the American people and everybody all over the world is because we have to protect democracy in Taiwan. We have to protect democracy in Taiwan, but the Chinese regime, the CCP regime that now threatens Taiwan, we paid for. I know it's hard for you guys to accept this. This is how conditioned we are to believe one thread of a narrative so intimately. It's like it's like the narrative becomes real personal for us. We become attached to it. We have to believe one of these threads. This is the security state. This is global, very sophisticated global institutions and powerful people understanding the human psychology and the need for coherent, logical explanations way deeper than we could possibly imagine. And the entire apparatus of global propaganda, news, television, narratives, journalism is all based on their knowledge that you need coherent, logical loops that are closed. You need closed loops. The human mind doesn't like open loops. The human mind ruminates on open loops. You need that loop to be closed. And if they close that loop with a big, fat ass lie, good enough for me. That's how most people think. Most people, good enough. They close the loop. I understand that. We got to protect democracy in Taiwan. But all of you people are comfortable getting your goods from the slave labor in China. The same regime that now threatens Taiwan is a regime that we all paid for, that you all paid for. And not only that, it's a regime that they plan for you to pay more money into. Not only that, they plan to actually make you dependent on energy from the same regime that now threatens Taiwan. Imagine that. Imagine an entire nation is going to go to war and write checks and borrow money from future generations to protect the country, to protect democracy in a country from another country that we are signing over our energy independence to? Oh, you guys don't get it yet? Democracy, social justice, environmentalism. We got to go to electric vehicles. Where are the electric vehicle materials coming from? Where are they coming from? Not just the vehicles, the entire grid is going to be green energy. Where do you think the green energy components are coming from? Where do you think they're going to be manufactured? They're coming from Africa. They're coming from natural resource-rich places that are now being settled by China, that we are allowing them to settle, that we are helping them settle, facilitating the deals, brokering the deals. We're brokering the new Chinese settlement all around the world. We went from a Great Britain colonial empire to an American security global protectorate. Now we're going to go to a manufacturing and industrial Chinese-centric imperial tributary dynasty. 1, 2, 3. We're going to protect Taiwan from the same CCP that we funded, that we built? Really? And then if you dig a little deeper, all of the educated, all of the Harvard and Yale, all of the donor class of the political sphere, they get another explanation. Their explanation is, well, the microchips. We got to protect the microchips. Where are the chips designed? The chips aren't designed in Taiwan. The Taiwanese don't have a patent on microchip design. We're not relying upon the Taiwanese people to build chips because they're the only people who understand how to build the chips. The only reason the chips are in Taiwan is because we don't manufacture shit in this country. That's the only reason. We designed the chips. The chips are designed here in America. And you have to ask, and this is how deep the double cross and triple cross gets. You have to ask yourself, in a geopolitical landscape where a country that we are now committed to protecting, an entire world away, for the most part, a country that we're committed to protecting is under threat from another country that we helped build up in every sense, economically, militarily, technologically, in every sense we helped build China into what it is. We are now fully committed to protecting this one tiny country from this really big country. Committed. And we're going to be dependent on their energy, number one. Number one, we're going to be dependent on their energy for green energy in the future. But number two, nobody in America finds it urgent that we start to manufacture our own chips. That in the interest of American sovereignty, in our own basic national security interests, we must turn on the manufacturing factories in this country so we can be self-sufficient, which we could be in no time. If we had a uniparty, a Congress, a Democrat and Republican Congress in this country or Senate in this country that actually gave a shit about the overall security of this country or its freedoms or its social justice or anything else. They're pirates. They're taking the money. That's it. And all you fucking morons on both sides of the aisle are convinced that some little petty narrative that these parties are peddling to you is really what they say it is. Just look at the outcomes. Look at the actions. Look at where we are. We are dependent on a country for microchips who is going to be invaded by another country we're dependent on for energy. Why? Why are we dependent on these two nations for any fucking thing? Now, if we want to fight a war for the Taiwanese because we don't believe that it's okay for the Chinese government to take Taiwan, to conquer Taiwan in a postmodern, non-war of aggression packed global community, okay, I get that. Our own house better be in order. We better be able to hold up that moral standard. We better start to pull out of the places that we conquered softly and said, we gave you democracy. Some people don't want that, don't want democracy. Fuck off. Go fuck yourself. Don't want democracy. That's not high up on the list for us. Those African nations, we don't want your LGBTQism. Go fuck yourself. That's not a priority for us. We still got people dying of river blindness, which is cured by ivermectin, which has now been demonized in Western media due to COVID, the COVID narrative. Where did the COVID narrative go? I mean, I could just keep going. This shit is ridiculous. And you ask, what are the solutions? Well, the solution is simple. We need American manufacturing. The first thing we need to do is secure our borders. I said that last week when we talked about annexation versus secession. The first thing we need to do is secure our borders. Canada and Mexico, until further notice. And really, into the future, let's just get serious. America underwrites Canada and Mexico's entire deal. Now China's coming to get lithium from Mexico. They're coming to mine the natural resources in Mexico. And the Mexicans are selling us out. That's a reality. Highest bidder. We need to secure our borders first. Then we need to turn our manufacturing on. We don't need to be dependent on any of these other nations for essential national interests. We don't. We don't need the Chinese for antibiotics. We don't need the Chinese or the Taiwanese for green energy or microchips or anything else. If we want to fight righteously on behalf of people who are bullied, people who are being mistreated or persecuted or genocided or oppressed, if we want to be that power, if we want to be that nation that fights on behalf of these people all around the world, let's make sure we're secure enough here at home to ensure that we can do that and that we can do it from a righteous position. If we really believe in democracy so much, which I think is a complete fucking scam from the word go. Number one, let's be clear. I think this entire democracy pitch, this entire promotion of democracy and going around the world on behalf of democracy is a fucking lie. It's a scam. In fact, I know it's a scam. But if we want to fight on behalf of justice, that's a good thing. That's good. Let's put ourselves in position to do it. Because we can. And you have to ask yourself, anybody who's in powerful positions in this country, whether it be in politics, whether it be in the donor class, the corporations, or the administrative state, any of these people who are in power in this country, if any of them aren't calling for an immediate boost of American manufacturing, an immediate overhaul of American manufacturing right now, we have to assume they are either ignorant to it or in on it. I'm leaning towards in on it. What do you think, Tanner? Too obvious to be ignorant to it. Way too obvious to be ignorant to it. You think Joe Biden doesn't know that we're vulnerable, that our national security interests are vulnerable by relying on Taiwan for microchips? No, he knows it. They actually even spoke on it, that we're going to start to now build microchips here in America. But I mean, how long have we known that was a vulnerability? Are these people just stupid? Do we believe they're stupid, that they didn't know? That they didn't know eventually Taiwan would be under threat of the Chinese? We built China. This is the double cross and triple cross. We tag them, they tag us. We tag them, they tag us. It's all meant to keep you in place, you in order. You not to ask the basic questions. You not to ask the very simple questions. What are we doing over here? South Korea, Japan, Vietnam, the Philippines, Australia, India. We have allies. They all better be ready to protect the freedoms that they now believe they have a right to. Because if not, all of that shit is China. With all due respect to all of those countries. We're talking about the reality now. South Korea, Philippines, Vietnam, Japan. Australia is just a skip away. Oceania, it's right there. New Zealand. All that shit's China now. We going to go to a nuclear war over Taiwan? You gotta think that these fucking neocon, neoliberal warmongers are so corrupt that they would be willing to spark a world war and a nuclear conflict over petty geopolitical ambitions. That's who your leaders are. All you fuckers out there who voted for Joe Biden. All you goofballs out there who vote Democrat religiously. This is who your leaders are. They can't defend Taiwan. It can't be done. I don't care what the admiral from the Nimitz tells you. It can be done. Maybe it can be done. It's going to be expensive. There's going to be blood, and there's expense in war, and I get it. And maybe we do need to go to war with China, and maybe we do need to defend Taiwan. We better put ourselves in position to do it, and we better make sure that the reason why we're doing it is righteous, and it's the reason we say we are. Because the game is the margin of error is getting so small. The existential ramifications and consequences of these choices the margin of error is so small that if people's spiritual and righteous motives, if people's motives aren't in the right place, the consequences will come to bear down on people far beyond themselves. That's where we are now. Okay, let's protect Taiwan. Let's protect Japan. South Korea, the Philippines, Australia, New Zealand, I'm in. India, I'm in. Don't want them to come under the thumb of a tyrannical China, I'm in. We better position ourselves to do it. We better vote like we need to protect them. We better vote in this country like we will need to protect them and put people in power who knows what it takes to protect them. We better start to vote that way, and we better start to prepare ourselves to protect them. We better start to prepare our manufacturing to be self-sufficient and independent so we can be moral and ethical arbiters around the world, because the reverse narrative is already on. The reverse narrative is America. You had your time as the arbiter of morals and ethics. You had your time as the arbiter of democracy. You blew it because you were corrupt when you did it. And I understand that. I agree. But as I look out in the world, I don't necessarily see a better arbiter out there. Who are you going to trust? The Iranians? The Saudis? The Chinese? That's who you want to trust. I can see it right now. The entire world has this card, this Trump card, no pun intended, right there in their right pocket. They got this Trump card in their right pocket where they almost want to say, you know what, maybe we're all better off with the Chinese having their turn. I can feel it. I can feel it because they build bridges fast. That's the scientific method. That's the Industrial Revolution masquerading around as human decency and progress when really it's just Satan. Satan using the scientific method and industry, industrialization, and the fourth industrial revolution to promote himself as prosperity. The fight is on. The fight is coming. It's on now. We're at war now with China. It's on. It's on. They're in the South China Sea, riding the boat, riding the ships close to each other, playing chicken there in the South China Sea. It's on. It's on. President Xi saying, people from the CCP, political officials there in China are saying if Joe Biden and America doesn't change their position on Taiwan and China, there's going to be a problem. They're saying it. The war's on. Hopefully we get a chance to vote again before the shit actually hits the fan. Because if I'm China, I'm attacking Taiwan to test Joe Biden's mental capacity under war conditions. Test all of them. Milley, Austin, all of them. If I'm China right now, I'm throwing down on Taiwan right about the run up to the election when Joe Biden's worried about keeping up the propaganda and talking points of the neoliberal neocon world order. Right about the time when he's focused on keeping up the talking points, if I'm China, I'm making a decisive move to go take Taiwan right then. And you watch. You watch when they go to take Taiwan. There's a flip side of the coin. Maybe the Chinese don't ever need to take Taiwan. Maybe the Chinese and the Taiwanese already have a deal, and the Taiwanese said, hey, you can continue to use us as a threat in this whole little negotiation. Taiwanese are sitting over there in China right now. Hey, you don't ever have to really come invade us. We're with you. But you can continue to threaten that you'll come and invade us to draw America out and see what they'll do. Maybe that's what's going on. All of the easy answers are behind us. All of the easy decisions are behind us. The first thing we need to do is prepare to be self-sufficient for whatever challenges we may face. We can battle deception. We can fight against deception. It's going to be hard to fight against deception and manipulation and all the enemies out there we have when we're still bogged down by self-deception. Right now, we are marred. We're a nation marred by self-deception. Once we clear out the self-deception, once we get straight about who we are, once we get our house in order, once we get our room clean, once we get all our belongings, all of our essential needs and goods in order, then we can start to evaluate the entire geopolitical landscape with some clarity. We're not clear right now. We don't know which way is fucking up. We don't know who the Taiwanese are allegiant to. We want to believe, but their country's probably much like ours, split down the middle. A lot of people in Taiwan probably side with the Chinese. A lot of people in Taiwan probably hate the Chinese. I know people from Taiwan, actually, and there's a strong contingent of people in Taiwan who believe that China's Taiwan. They believe the reverse. They believe Taiwan is the original power and dynasty, that they're the original culture, and the Chinese are the posers. So they have a history there of their own between Taiwan and China. But it's the same thing in Russia. It's the same thing in Ukraine. Some people in Ukraine probably are with Russia. Some people in Ukraine are with the Ukrainians. Some people in Ukraine are with Vienna and Brussels. We don't know now. We don't know who the Aussies are with. We don't know if the Aussies are going to uphold the Westphalian nation state and the Western tradition and the Commonwealth and the English-speaking Commonwealth tradition of Australia. We don't know. We've seen the Australians are really willing to throw down. They're the first ones who tipped us off to what the CCP was doing in all actuality. Aside from those of us within America and within the European monarchy that knew exactly what China was doing because they helped them do it. Outside of that scope and sphere of influence, the threw the flag. What is this? We're not going for this because they're in the firing line. Skip away from Australia, right there in Southeast Asia. They don't want to come under the thumb of tyranny of the CCP, of China. What I'm saying is we just don't know right now. I'm not going to be the person to come here and tell you I know exactly what it is, who the people are, what their motives are, I can see what people are saying. I can see the history. I can try and deduce from the history, and we can make good assumptions, but there are assumptions at the end of the day. Time will tell. People's actions will show and reveal. The question is, when they reveal themselves, are we prepared? Are we assuming the worst? Are we assuming the best? Are we prepared for the worst? That's what leadership should be doing. That's what the leader of a family, of a community, of a city, of a state, of a nation, that's what a real leader does. They prepare you for the worst case scenario. They hope for the best. They prepare for the worst. Are we prepared for the worst? Are we prepared right now for a realization that every other nation in the world is now conspiring and collaborating to displace America and bring this nation to its knees for the history of this nation or for the things we've done across the world? Are we ready for that realization? Are we prepared to fight off the entire world? Are we prepared to fight off a revolution of American freedom and democracy at the behest of the CCP that gains sympathy from a worldwide, a global community connected through supply chains, through the convenience and wealth and prosperity of modern supply chains that gives them their goods and dopamine and jerk-off material they need? Are we ready to fight against that? All of them might be in on it together. European Union, Russia, China, they all might be in on it together. We don't know. There's a common theme. There's certainly a communist Marxist ideological thread connecting them all. We don't know. We don't know. Maybe the European Union and Russia are just putting this war on as a theater. It's not unlike great militaries to be willing to sacrifice large amounts of people to put on propaganda. It's in the battle plans. Look here in America. We have plans like that. False flags, kill a bunch of people for some political propaganda. There are those of us out there that believe that this entire war in the Ukraine is being used to forward more global governance. And you can see where that is possible. That a tactical nuclear exchange would create the circumstance and the justification for global governance and the reconstruction of an entire global economy to a more fourth industrial revolution-based economy. More artificial intelligence, more robotics, more automation. I'm on the road going to Kansas City. We pull up to a McDonald's in Missouri. Hungry on the road, just grabbing something quick to eat. Pull up to a McDonald's, which I don't recommend anybody eats, by the way. But we pull up to a McDonald's, and the entire drive-through is voice activated. The entire process was voice activated. McDonald's. You think there's a place for you in the fourth industrialized revolution world? Yuval Noah Harari already told you there's going to be more and more useless people because now the person who had enough dignity, enough self-respect to march on down to McDonald's and just get a regular minimum wage paying job to contribute to society, be able to take care of themselves and feed the community, which everybody looks down upon like it's some shit job. Okay. Somebody has to prepare the food we all want to eat. Whether you're flipping burgers at McDonald's, which people make fun of, or you're a cook at some restaurant in the back, it's the same burgers, the same meat, same process, same service. We all want to joke about that. Now, that person's going to be replaced by a machine. It's already happening. That's what I'm trying to tell you. This isn't a conspiracy. This isn't tinfoil hat shit. 5 years ago, you go to a McDonald's, if you don't want tomato, you tell the person no tomato. Now you go to the machine and you say no tomato and it asks you 3-4 different times. What was that? What was that? What was that? I don't want tomato. Hello, is there somebody there? They don't even tell you that it's an automated service. They just got it wired up to talk to you like it's a real person. But you can hear that it's thinking. You can hear that it's not real. That's the gap they're willing to leave open for you to fall through, for your quality of life to fall through. That's the gap they're willing to leave open for you to have to suffer a reduced standard of living while they get the technology working the way they need to, and they're working on it. And pretty soon, you'll go to the McDonald's drive-thru, and the automation, the AI will be so good, it will seem like a real person. That's when you're in the danger zone. Right now is the warning shot. Right now, when you pull up to McDonald's and the AI at the drive-thru is still hiccuping because they haven't gotten the technology down yet, this is the warning phase. This is the warning shot. When you pull up to that McDonald's and it sounds like there's a real person and they respond on point like it's a real person, when you call Sprint or T-Mobile or when you call Comcast or whatever else that, your basic utilities, phone, cell phone, cable, whatever the case may be, Wi-Fi, when you call right now and you get an automated system and you can tell it's automated, these are the warning shots. Where they want to go, which is China-led, which is green energy, which is environmentalism in 15-minute cities, where they want to go, soon you won't know the difference. And by then, the plan of your Yuval Noah Hararis will have been executed, and you won't know what to fight for anymore. There'll be nothing to fight for anymore. This is globalism. President Xi, he's okay with globalism if it's China-centric. If it's not China-centric, then he goes back to being a nationalist. Vladimir Putin, he's okay with globalism as long as Russia gets its fair cut. If not, he goes back to being a nationalist as well. The European monarchies, they're the progenitors of globalism. There's a difference. Understand the differences. Right now, President Xi is going through rural China and exacting a communist. He is bringing about a communist redistribution of wealth at a small scale that will gain him support throughout the entire grassroots population of China. That's what he's doing. He's using communism as a calling card to fortify his political support in and throughout the country of China. But don't be mistaken. There are globalists there in China. There are sellouts there in China who don't see that as the strategy, who don't see the need to grease the palms of the peasants in order to keep power. And when the time comes, don't think they won't take President Xi out. And don't think they won't replace President Xi with an even worse globalist dictator there in China. And then the plan will be complete. Does that mean President Xi's a good guy? No. Understand the danger around the corner as well as the one in front of you. That's what good leaders do. What does that mean? That means we need to stop being reliant on a fucking country that is just as unpredictable as we are. We don't know what the hell's going to take place there in China. We need to not be relying on it. We need to not let our local politicians like CAIR, our local activism groups like CAIR, pass political propaganda through holy religious communities. No separation of church and state. I get a call the other day. We get a call at home the other day. And I'm telling you this now. I'm going to bring havoc to the Hopkins School District. The Minnesota Hopkins School District is about to have an issue on their front door that they could not possibly foresee. We get a call the other day on the road because my son played on Friday, so he actually missed Friday's school on Friday because we were traveling on Friday morning. And looking back on it now, I'm glad he missed it. He missed the day as well. Because now his mother and I have to go up to the school and ask why his teacher is telling his class that she identifies as a wolf. My son's teacher at the Hopkins School District, in the Hopkins School District, in the 6th grade, is telling her class that she identifies as a wolf. And she's a little touchy-feely as well. She's a little touchy-feely by reports from some of the kids. Not just my kids, but other kids that are in the class as well. It's a community. It ain't hard. When you coach a basketball team, it's not hard to ask the kids about a teacher. Maybe they're embellishing. They're kids. I get it. We're going to get to the fucking bottom of it. I want to see the cameras. I want to come and shadow at a class. I want to come and shadow a class now, and I want to hear what the teachers are talking about. And I invite and I encourage every single one of you parents out there as a first step solution for all you motherfuckers out there who want to keep solutions. We know what the problem is. Go to your kids' fucking school and shadow in those goddamn classrooms. There should be 10, 15 parents a week shadowing in these classrooms. That's your right to be able to sit in your kid's classroom and see what's going on. If not, pull your fucking kid from the school. Pull your kid from the school, and all you 501c3 Christians out there better start ramping up the need for our own Christian schools who believe in a good old-fashioned education, the same way we need to bring our manufacturing of computer chips home. We better start to ramp up the need and fill the void and fill the gap when we start to pull back and pull out of this corrupt system. Yeah, you can send your kid to private school, costs money. Everybody doesn't have that type of money. This is where real Christian charity is going to come back into play. Christian charity. There should be free Christian school with as much money as the Catholic Church has. With as much money as these Christian institutions have, there should be Christian schools, there should be Christian high schools, middle schools, public schools all across the country that don't cost any money. Why does it always cost so much money to send your kid to a private Catholic or Christian school? Why is it always so expensive? We don't have enough money? The Christian and Catholic, the Catholic community, we don't have enough money to fund our own schools? 501c3 Christianity. Sellouts. My son's teacher identifies as a wolf. She feels the need to tell her 6th grade class about her romantic history, who she dated, who she was with. This is going on now. This is happening right now. And she's a little touchy-feely, like I said. Don't touch my kid. Don't fucking touch my kid. Don't touch my kid. Don't talk to my kid about who you fucking dated. Don't talk to my kid about your weird fucking identity crisis. Strikes home eventually. Everything you hear people talking about who they say are conspiracy theorists and the Star Tribune who use Muslims as a way to pass political propaganda, everything you hear them talking about strikes home eventually. We're at war. We're at war in our school systems. We're at war with other countries. We're at war in the Senate and the Congress. We're at war with the security state and the administrative state. We are at war. We better get serious about the implications. We better quit jerking off, and we better prepare ourselves to be sufficient if we want to continue to be a moral arbiter of freedom and peace all around the world, because right now we're not positioned to do so. Right now we're a laughingstock. We're a symbol of hypocrisy. We need to clean that up. Not by going on some strange apology tour where we give cokehead vegan shamanism to some third world country, or we give mosquito nets to some African nation. Not by doing it that way. By just saying, you know what? You know what leadership would be? For Joe Biden to stand before the United Nations and say, this is what America has been, this is where America has gone wrong, and this is what America plans to be. This is what we'll tolerate, this is what we won't tolerate. Leadership. Up until now, we have been the strong arm of a political ideology known as the post-World War II democratic liberal order, where we claimed to be bringing liberalism and democracy to countries in need all over the planet. The truth was we used it as a front to engage in piracy, slavery, and drugs. We see the folly in that. We see the flaw in that. We see the problem with that. We see the moral hazard in that. And now an even more predatory player on the board, known as China, plans to use the same model, the same strategy and plan to come back around the world and gain your sympathy to live in a godless, anti-human, post-industrial, fourth industrial society, civilization, globally. You have a choice. While you make your choice, we're going to go on home and pull out all these places where we were corrupt, but you reap the benefits, the material benefits, the technological benefits. All these places where we're pulling out now. We're going to go back home because we see the fight on the horizon and we know where we stand. He would never say that. He's 80 years old. He can barely construct a fucking sentence. This is who you dumb motherfuckers elected. You elected a man in wartime that can barely construct a single fucking sentence. How stupid can you be? How stupid can you be to put your faith in a man who can barely construct a single fucking sentence? He's going to lead the nation? No, you know he's not leading the nation. When you cast your vote, you know he's not the actual one in power. You know the power around the power is what's in power, and you trust in that power. You trust that that power can construct a sentence because that power gives you a bunch of fucking paragraphs and sentences at Davos and all these other fucking geopolitical summits all year long. They give you well-crafted, constructed sentences in the New York Times and CNN and MSNBC and Fox News and so on and so forth. You're completely comfortable with the cognitive stability of the corrupt status quo. That's why you can cast a vote for Joe Biden. But we're coming to a time now where the individuals in power are actually going to matter more than ever because the corrupt status quo is shaking. The world order is shaking. And when the world order starts to shake and tremble, then who your president is actually is going to matter. Because the wave of the corrupt status quo is no longer the stabilizing force. Now it's going to come down to individual chess players and how they can move their pieces, what their individual constitution is like. And you've entrusted a man and got caught with your pants down with two other nations, with two men who are formidable enemies, and our president can barely construct a fucking sentence. And for all you black bourgeoisie sellouts out there, they're going to tell you that we're going to throw Donald Trump in jail now because he paid a porn star hush money. And the president of the United States' fucking son is a crack addict who's over buying prostitutes in the Ukraine or China or getting $1 billion from China. Are you people fucking stupid? The answer is yes. I mean, I'm sick of the shit. I'm sorry it gets like this every time. When I get a phone call from another student's parent saying that my 6th grade son's teacher identifies as a wolf in class, I'm pissed off. Then I look up and my Muslim brothers during Ramadan are being used as a political token to stoke division and push political propaganda. I'm pissed off. Are you? Are you pissed yet? That you got to pay $20 fucking for a loaf of bread? Look at our American manufacturing. Cadillac Escalade. I remember when the Cadillac Escalades first came out, high price, the highest price, $65,000, $60,000. $60,000. Cadillac Escalade today at the high, $200,000. $200,000 for a GM Cadillac. Inflation. It's not hard. Joyanne Reed. Never trust a black woman who wears a white woman's wig. How the fuck would I look if I came on today and I had Jeb Bush's hair on my head? How would it look if I had Stephen Colbert, a wig with Stephen Colbert's hair on my head? Would you trust me? Bitch, if you're bald-headed, wear your fucking natural hair. Nobody gives a fuck. Just stop lying to us every night. Stop using the fucking pulpit of a 7 million person audience to tell these bullshit lies that come out of Langley or whatever other security state agency they're in collaboration with. Don't trust people who wear, don't trust black women who wear white women's wigs. And why do I bring the black woman up? I think I sent you the other day. I don't know. I saw it the other day. Let me look real quick before we end here. Before we end, I'm going to look it up right now. Because I could have sworn I saw that they were using a black woman to push. I'll bring it to you Wednesday as a part of the current events and reactions video. But once again, they were using a black woman to push some crazy political policy. I'm just checking here. Just give me a moment, because I might find it really quickly here. Well, I hate to stop the momentum. I'll find it and we'll get it up there on Wednesday. But long story short is they're using black women ad nauseum. If they can get a black woman on board and to push, their psychotic worldviews, it's Christmas, and they're doing it ad nauseum. And the whole benefit of it is, if you're a black man or if you're a mixed man like me, if you're Christian, if you're a man in general, if you criticize black women, you're automatically the enemy of the LGBTQ now anti-Muslim alliance that leads this entire post-World War II democratic liberal order on the social justice side. We're going to make room for Muslims to pray in the city through the loudspeaker. But we're going to continue to buy goods from a country that just put 3 million Muslims in a concentration camp. Go fuck yourself. This has been another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio. If you're going to lie to yourself, if you're going to live in self-deception, just go fuck yourself. For all of you patriots out there, all of you people who believe in God, family, and country, get ready. Get ready, because the fight is here. It's happening right now. And if we don't put our foot down, if we don't find the courage and the commitment to take this country back and change it, we will be slaves or worse. As always, the fight continues. Godspeed.